My freelancing journey started when I pressed a buy button and bought over 100 different ties from China. It may not make sense right now, but believe me, it makes sense at the end. And I actually really remember that particular moment when I decided to press buy and order those ties. It was actually New Year's Eve, and I was on a skiing holiday with my family. And just before we went out, to celebrate New Year's Eve during the evening, I was sitting with my laptop and deciding if I should buy those ties or not. And that was, at the time, I think it cost about like $400 for all of those ties. And that was a lot of money to me that was back in like 2015. And I was really nervous. I almost didn't actually press buy, and I wouldn't be the person that I am if I wouldn't have ordered those ties. I think that was a very defining moment in my whole freelancing and entrepreneurial journey. And in this video, I actually want to focus more on that. The title says from $0 to $150,000 per year, but I want to focus on that zero part, on that beginning, how my whole journey started before I went into the freelancing career and when I started doing that full time. First, you have to understand a few things about me, and you'll probably relate to one or at least couple of things that I talk about in my story, and you see yourself somewhere on that path. Well, you might be heading the same way as I am, just few years or few steps behind. So when I started thinking about this video, what I'm gonna say, what I'm gonna talk about, I think I figured like two different things that were very pivotal in my whole freelancing and entrepreneurial kind of mindset. First one was my father. So he had his business basically since day one. He never really had a 9-to-5 job, and that's all basically he knew, and that's what he tried to teach me. So from the early age, he really taught me a lot of things about business, how it works, about money. He always said that being independent is kind of the most important thing, and I think I really took that to the heart. And also in between, those years, my teenage years, I also was reading a lot of like business books. At the time, I didn't really understand much, but I think a lot of the things kind of went into my subconscious. So basically, kind of very early on, I knew that I also wanted to do some kind of business, or at least work on myself. I always felt that full-time positions or traditional careers are not for me, although I was pursuing them very actively, especially during my university years. I think I always had this feeling inside of me that I don't think that's the right path for me. But again, I probably had to try a couple of things before I really understood those feelings and decided to go the other way. But the second pivotal moment in my journey, I think, was I was bullied at school. I wasn't a popular kid at school. I wasn't popular with the girls. I didn't really have many friends. I was, kind of on the outside. And because of that, I think I kind of developed this mindset that I wanted to show others that I can make it. That, I'm not this weird, guy, and that I actually can show something for myself. So I think that kind of drive, I think it's still kind of in me until this day. It's probably way less now, but especially in the beginning, I think that what was motivated me to actually pursue things on my own, go off the traditional path. Everybody went to universities and then everybody went to those traditional jobs. I always felt that I needed to steer away from those traditional paths. And a funny thing about school is that I knew early on that I didn't like it and then I want to finish it as soon as possible. I remember when I was being 6 years old, because in Lithuania we start school at 7, I really wanted to go to school. I remember I was so hyped to go to the first grade. I was really excited to experience something new. It was amazing. But then after the first full year of school, I didn't really enjoy it. I kind of hated it. It didn't fit me at all. For some reason, I remember having, it wasn't bad or anything like that, at least as far as I remember in the first grade, but for some reason, it didn't really click with me. And I very, very clearly remember when I got back from my first full year of school, I remember telling my parents that, my goal in life is to finish school as fast as possible. Basically, I didn't really like it, and now the rest 11 years that I still have at school, in my mind, I just wanted to get it over as quickly as possible, because somehow I knew that life will begin after I finish school. That was also kind of a very weird thing for a child. I was like, 7, 8 years old at that time, to kind of realize and say, my life will begin after school. And so I have no idea why or how I made this mind, but even because I wasn't really bullied, or like in the first grade, it wasn't that bad. So I have no idea why, but early on, I didn't really enjoy school, and it didn't really help, as the years progressed. But eventually, school ended. I remember I was so happy when I finished high school. That was probably one of the best days of my life. Definitely in the top 10, or certainly, because I felt this somewhat a pressure of a stone, like just gone. It was just gone. And I knew that now I can begin my life. I can begin to pursue things like building a business. That was the thing that I kind of wanted to do, especially towards the end of high school. I really wanted to start something on my own, but I figured, hey, parents say, teachers say that, school is important and you need to start, go to university. So, okay, I was really focused on my studies. But then as soon as I got, finished high school, got accepted to university, and actually went to uni, I thought, this is my time. Now is my time to shine. And for the first 4 months of being in a university, I actually bought a whiteboard and a pen and started just writing down my goals, what kind of income I want to have, what kind of business I want to create, what are the possibilities. I was just brainstorming as much as I possibly can, because I knew this is the time. This is the moment I've been waiting for. I think for the past 3 years. I think I started having these thoughts when I was maybe 16, 17, and then once I went to university when I was 19, that was the moment. Okay, now is the time for me. But those months kind of went by, and Christmas rolled out, and I didn't really do anything. Looking back, it was only just a couple of months, besides all of my studies, besides all of the things that I was doing, on the university, on campus with friends. So it didn't, now looking back, it doesn't seem that long, but it felt like an eternity, and it felt like I haven't done anything. And I was really hard on myself that I need to do something. How much can I brainstorm? And so we actually circle back to the beginning of buying those 100 ties from China. So I saw some Lithuanian guys, having a really successful e-commerce store here in Lithuania. And basically I kind of went and saw their kind of courses. There were free webinars that they did. And I thought, hey, I think I have enough to just get started, and really wanted to get started. So I told this idea to my friend, a good friend at the time. He really also liked the idea. He was also kind of entrepreneurial, in that entrepreneurial spirit. And we kind of decided, hey, let's give it a go. So we kind of just went for it. We did some really basic research in December during the holidays. And then the time actually came on a New Year's Eve to actually buy those ties. And I did press the buy button, and we ordered over 100 ties. And, that's a whole different story how that e-commerce thing went. But to make it a bit shorter, after 6 months, it failed. We made a couple of sales, nothing really happened. And that was kind of it. But I'm so glad that I actually started, because besides the things that I actually learned how to, that was back in 2015. So I learned about domains, setting websites. I learned about copywriting. I learned about advertising. I was actually a lot of since we were doing things from zero, I actually learned a lot of critical skill. Like, again, looking back at that time, I didn't really understand, but looking back, I learned a lot of critical skills just by trying this very small project. It did cost me some money to sort of get it going, and we made a few sales. But I think the most important part was just getting that momentum, because after 6 months we kind of decided to shut it down because the store was costing us money, and we saw that we can't really make any sales, and we also relied heavily on advertising, and we exhausted our budget basically. So we decided to shut it down, but I had this drive and this momentum in me to do something else. And I think this is kind of the key. Once you start something, it's very difficult to start, but once you start it, it's a lot easier to maintain that momentum. Once you've been going to the gym for a couple of weeks, it's a lot easier to wake up and get going again. So because I had this momentum, I kind of went and did more of these entrepreneurial things. And I know I am gonna summarize this because we probably can be here for whole hours if I would, just describe every single year what I did and how everything went. But the beginning was very hard because I tried a bunch of things, from writing books on for Amazon, for Kindle, to kind of working with newsletters, to working for startups, to doing social media, to working on I think I tried every single thing that I possibly could think of at the time, but it was very difficult because majority of the things, they didn't work out. So it was very hard for me. I was just a broke student, barely making anything. I would make a couple of $100 there, maybe $100 from another project. Mainly I was just learning how things work. And I was also starting to get into freelancing because I was sort of getting maybe project there or some other projects from friends, from network. But I think the pivotal moment again here was me signing up on Upwork. So once I joined Upwork, the platform, I was actually, again, it wasn't easy. It sounds easy because, I'm just saying some words and, when I say 2 months passed, it doesn't feel like it, but at the time, week after week of getting nothing, it's very difficult. Eventually, I kind of broke out. I found a few clients, my profile started to pick up, and then I was able to actually go full time. So for the last couple of years of my university, I was basically sustaining myself with these freelancing projects. And again, I think I'm very grateful that I made that decision to just sign up on a platform and just give it a go. And I think a lot of people do that. They do sign up for platforms for things, but for some reason I have this drive to give it enough time to get something out of it. I think a lot of people do sign up on Upwork, but after a week or two, maybe a month, they don't see any results, they quit and they move on to something else. I spent like 2 months just to find one client. And that one client, it wasn't even a big client. It took me another maybe 2-3 months to find another client. So the early struggles were kind of difficult, but somehow I think I have this sort of drive to just make it work for any way possible. And I think that kind of allows me to, whatever I do, just to go a little bit further, try something a little bit more, to just kind of break through and make that thing work for me. However, interesting thing is that when I finished university, although I was already kind of doing freelancing full time, I wasn't earning any crazy money, but I was able to kind of just sustain for my day-to-day like rent, food and stuff like that. For some reason, I wasn't unsure what to do next. I was still clinging to the idea that I needed to go and work somewhere and I needed to get some real experience. I needed to get a real job. So the freelancing, although I was doing it felt like just a temporary thing for some reason. So it is conflicting because I always knew that I would want to go back to doing something on my own, want to go back to doing business. But once I actually, I was doing something on my own, for some reason I thought I do need to, go the traditional path and work at Google, Apple, some companies to I don't know, gather experience, something like that, and then go back to freelancing. Now, now that I think about it, it sounds dumb, but at the time I was a bit lost. And throughout actually my career, I only had 2 full-time jobs and both of them were actually just a couple of months. So I think my total experience was probably like 6 months in total, just working as a full-time employee between those 2 couple of jobs. And one was a Skyscanner, where I actually had a summer internship, and I actually really enjoyed working there because that was my first full-time experience of working 9 to 5, and I think for the majority part I kind of really enjoyed that one. But it did show me that how kind of mundane and simple and not challenging working at the office is, because before getting to the office I was already trying some e-commerce things, doing something, just trying to improve myself. So I was this young student who had a lot of drive, but then I was put in this kind of big corporation where everything was a bit simple and maybe a bit boring. I mean, not at the beginning, because in the beginning everything's new, but after a month there, I was just like, just meetings and very simple stuff with a lot of other older people who I think, now I think I understand them way better, the way they kind of felt and looked at me with young enthusiasm, trying to make something more, whereas they just wanted to do their job and go home. But my second full-time job was the most crucial one, because that was my last full-time job. So I was hired by after finishing university, I was hired by a marketing agency to basically be their marketing manager. And I accepted it because I was also moving back from Copenhagen. At the time I studied in Copenhagen, and I'm from Lithuania, and the marketing agency was based in Lithuania as well. And my plan was to actually go back to Lithuania to just spend some time there, because I haven't lived in my home country for like 7 years up to that point. So I thought, hey, that was the perfect timing. I'll just go there, I'll work, I'll just rent my own apartment, just see what's life out like in Lithuania. But when I got to that marketing agency, it was a very bad experience for me. First of all, I actually got fired from the marketing agency, so I didn't even pass the 3 months test that you need to pass to get that full-time contract. I was there only for 2 months, and at that point, I got actually really angry, because I thought I was trying to improve the agency. I thought I was trying to do more. I was really fired up to just improve, do more, and see sort of how everything works. But it seemed like everybody at that agency wanted just a comfy seat and just do everything by the book. And since I didn't follow the rules by the book, I think a lot of people got annoyed because of that. And interestingly enough, there were actually 3 managers hired at the same time, and the 2 other managers actually stayed at the company because they did everything by the book. And when I was looking at their job, I thought like, why are you're not? It felt to me like they're not doing anything. But in the end, I was the one that got fired, and they got the job, which really was I didn't comprehend this at the time. For me, it felt very unfair and weird, and I felt angry. It was a very sort of bad, or now looking back, maybe one of the best experiences that I possibly could have, because after that, because I was kind of angry, I decided, to myself, hey, I would never work for a corporation again. I had such a bad experience. I was like, why do I even bother trying to make things work when nobody really wants that? So I never looked back. That was the last 9 to 5 job that I ever had. And from then on, I only focused on freelancing. If you're still here, thank you for watching until the end. I hope this story inspired, or maybe you felt more related to some of the things that I said in this video. So if you are willing to watch next one, I think YouTube is suggesting you this one, so check it out, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.